What is up, weather enthusiasts? I'm your host, Pat's Path Predictor. Let's get right into the weather. Alright, so here's the situation we have for you, ladies and gentlemen. Francine is currently hovering over the western Gulf of Mexico. It has finally entered that eddy we were talking to you about yesterday and last night. Convection is really starting to blow up near the center of circulation, and things are finally starting to get their act together in the Gulf of Mexico. So here's the situation that we're dealing with right now with Francine. Let's go ahead and show you and pull it up right here. Here's the cliff notes that we got for you as of right now. Francine is still a 65-mile-per-hour tropical storm. Minimum central pressure is 988 millibars. It's currently moving northeast at 9 miles per hour. Currently, hurricane warnings are in effect for much of the Louisiana coast. Let's go ahead and pull those up. Right here, we have hurricane warnings in effect for the extreme eastern part of Texas. I believe that's Jefferson County, Texas, that area over there, all the way through Vermilion Bay to near Houma, Louisiana. Let's go ahead and show you the new experimental cone as well. This is where the hurricane warnings are in effect. Never mind, there's a hurricane warning in effect pretty much from the Texas-Louisiana border all the way towards near New Orleans over here, and now moving further inland as this system is heading over towards that area. Also looking at that area of tropical storm force winds, looking a lot better on the cone and looking a lot more organized as well. So things are about to blow up. You're going to have to take this very seriously. And another thing you got to pay attention to as well is this system is forecast to stall, at least according to this, over in Arkansas, like over in the mid-Mississippi Valley, and that poses a very big flooding threat, which is, we already have a moderate risk of flash flooding in effect for parts of Louisiana and Mississippi right here. The entire state of Mississippi is in a slight risk outside of the coast around Biloxi, those areas right there. And then you have Cape Girardeau right here that is in that slight risk. It expands all the way up to southern Illinois and all the way from the Gulf Coast, which should tell you how expansive this flooding could get at this current point, as we are now expecting 8 to 12 inches of rainfall in isolated areas in Louisiana and 6 to 8 across much of the state, as well as parts of the coastal Mississippi over there, as well as parts of Jackson. We're expecting 2 to 4 to 4 to 6 inches, depending on where you are in that metro area. Peak surge continues to be interesting. 5 to 10 feet of storm surge is expected for Vermilion Bay and that area over there. 2 to 4 feet from High Island to Sabine Pass. 3 to 5 feet from Sabine Pass to the Rockefeller Wildlife Refuge. And 4 to 7 feet from Port Fourchon all the way to the Mississippi River mouth. So that's what we're going to have to keep very close tabs on right here. Here's the discussion that we have for you right here. Satellite imagery indicates that the center is becoming better organized with the development of a center dense overcast increased convective band near the center. In addition, the reports from the hurricane hunters show that the central pressure has fallen to around 988 millibars. However, these developments have not yet resulted in an increase of wind speed, and the aircraft reports still support an intensity near 55 knots in this advisory. After it was meandering last night, Francine is now moving north-northeastward with an initial movement of 7 knots, and approaching mid-latitude trough over Texas should cause the storm to turn northeastward at a faster forward speed during the next 24 to 36 hours. That's why it's going to pick up the pace as it gets closer to Louisiana. Ultimately, they have lowered the forecast to get down to 90 miles per hour, at least at its peak intensity before it makes landfall. However, considering that it's entering that eddy, I still do believe Category 2 strength is possible. I do apologize for that seizure warning for those of you who are prone to flashing lights like that. But considering that the eddy is now entered the eddy, it's finally getting its act together, and we actually have a sustainable area of very deep convection that is showing no signs of slowing down, neither due to dry air nor other factors right there. And the fact that the system has really consolidated over the last little while, the entire core is now seeing those minus 70 cloud tops instead of maybe one area of that like we were seeing earlier or another area of that. And it's actually sustaining itself relatively well. And we're seeing all those cloud tops and all that convection really ramping up. And I do believe tonight is the night where the system is going to finally intensify, finally get its act together, and things really start to go haywire as more and more Hurricane Hunter aircraft do start to approach at that current point. We have Mission 10 that is just taken off from Tampa Bay, expected to move into Francine. We have Mission 9 as well. It's kind of a little bit more complicated. It was doing some upper level drops and stuff around the area of Francine in those areas as well. But Mission 7 and Mission 8 is what we were watching earlier today, getting all that data. Mission 8 has just completed, so ultimately we're not going to get much recon from that anymore. We're going to have to wait probably another couple of hours to get all the way to for this recon flight to get all the way to Francine, but they are still supporting 65 knots as of a couple of hours ago. But I do think that the winds are finally going to start catching up to it at this current point. The winds are going to catch up to the pressure drop, and then you're going to start seeing some action going on as it approaches Louisiana. Where it's at right now is it's sitting over a very warm and very explosive eddy with ocean heat content over 175, which for those of you who do not know, that is a ton of OHC, and that supports explosive intensification at its very most. Right now, what we're looking at is a period of, I'd say, rapid intensification, where we're going to continue seeing that pressure dropping, and we're going to see the winds probably pick up to high-end Category 1 strength by pretty much tomorrow morning or early tomorrow afternoon. And then as the system approaches Louisiana, we could see a Category 2 intensity peak, as the models have been kind of forecasting that the system would struggle a little bit, but then get its act together once it entered that eddy. So we're going to have to pay very close attention to that as well. This is not the only system I am paying attention to, as well as there are other areas of interest that we are watching in the Atlantic Ocean near the main development region. Let's go ahead and pull those up for you right now. Here's what we have for this. We have a Invest 92L. That's getting absorbed by this area of interest right here, which I believe will be Invest 93L. Let me go ahead and take a look at the current storms. Yes, that is going to be Invest 93L. That's currently south of the Cabo Verde Islands, showing some signs of organization and development over the next few days. And this now has an 80% probability of development. So here's what we have going on. A trough of low pressure over the eastern tropical Atlantic is producing a large but disorganized area of showers and thunderstorms from near the Cabo Verde Islands, extending southwestward for several hundred miles. Environmental conditions are favorable for gradual development of the system, and a tropical depression will likely form during the latter part of this week while the system moves west-northwestward at 10 to 15 miles per hour. 40% probability in the next 48 hours, but it's steadily increasing for sure as well, and an 80% probability in the next 7 days. We also have this 30-30 area, which is Invest 92L. Environmental conditions appear only marginally conducive for some slight development, as the system right here is going to be absorbed by this one down the road. So we're going to have to watch that, as well as this does look like it could be a very big ace maker, and this could cause a lot of problems for shipping and all those things right there as the system tries to develop. Matter of fact, I want to go ahead and take a look at some of the track models that and intensity models. The majority of the track models do keep it out to sea, like I said, but the intensity models are pretty interesting. The early runs of the intensity models do want this to get up to hurricane strength, but keep in mind it's still early. This is the first initialization of the runs right here. We're gonna have to pay attention to that. Nothing is set in stone, and like anything has been really all season. But regardless, this is all stuff we're going to have to pay attention to, and this is all stuff that we're going to have to keep very close tabs on, not only just with Invest 92 and 93L, but also Francine, as well, as we continue to see that convection really start to ramp up and really start to fire off as more and more data comes in and more information continues to show. So, yeah, that's ultimately what we're watching. Let's go ahead and refresh this real quickly. Yeah, you're seeing that convection continue to sustain around the core of it. I'm going to check the radar very quickly. Yeah, it definitely looks like that core is starting to reorganize as well, and then things will start going haywire from there. So, ultimately, very interesting things are starting to come and go at this current point. Once again, this right here, and then once we get that there, we can go ahead and pause this and we can show the new frames. Yeah, the minus 80 cloud tops are really starting to get show a lot more than they did just a few minutes ago, and that's going to reflect on the organization and intensification of this system. So we're going to have to keep very close tabs on that. I know I keep saying it like a broken record, but this is going to be one of those systems that could surprise us, where maybe it starts off a little bit on the slow side of intensification, and then things really start to ramp up the night before, and then, oh my goodness, we're seeing a much stronger hurricane than anticipated. I do think that could be one of those scenarios if that convection continues to sustain. Otherwise, I do think that this could get up to like a 90-mile-per-hour hurricane, but I still, at the very least, I still think a Cat 2 is the most likely scenario, given that this is over that eddy, and the fact that we're finally seeing that convection around the core actually get its act together. But ultimately, that's some stuff we're going to have to pay attention to. The pressure, at least according to this data, is 987 millibars, and that's what the 4 p.m. advisory is going to probably go for, as well as 65 miles per hour still, as they are waiting for Hurricane Hunter Recon to go in and investigate. Recon's going to be a very big thing tonight as well to watch for, and that's definitely something we're going to have to keep an eye on as well. Water temperatures, where it's at right now, it's in an area of about 30 degrees Celsius of waters right now. 30 degrees Celsius is 86 degrees Fahrenheit for those of you who live in the United States and on the Gulf Coast watching the system. So plenty of warm water for the system to organize and develop, as well as Invest 92 and 93L, sitting over 27 to 28 degrees Celsius waters, which is about 80.6 to 82.4 degrees Fahrenheit for those of you tuning in from the United States and Puerto Rico. But that's ultimately something we're going to have to pay attention to right there. Ocean heat content, let's go ahead and take a look at this. This is where that eddy is. This is where Francine is right now. It's over that very large and very conducive eddy. It's going to sit over there for the next 12 hours or so, and it's going to really take full advantage of it. It's already taking advantage of it right now, and things are going to continue to ramp up, and things are going to continue to escalate from there, as long as the dry air is put in check, and as long as the dry air doesn't really ultimately do too much to it right there. But that's your ocean heat content, where the system is over. Things are continuing to escalate as well. We're going to have to watch as this area of ocean heat content and the return to it we're getting on satellite are going to overlap and supersede each other. And that's something we're going to have to watch, because this is the area where it's going to rapidly intensify if it does so. If not, it's going to be more gradual. It's going to get up to Category 1 strength, most likely around 90 miles per hour, and then that's pretty much what we'll see. But still, a 90-mile-per-hour hurricane is not something you should kind of brush off and say, oh, it's just a Category 1. This storm is expected to bring 5 to 10 feet of storm surge to the Vermilion Bay. So if you are tuning in from that area along the coast of Louisiana, you are expected to get a lot of storm surge. I have seen how hurricanes can cause water damage up close and up personal. I went to Florida, for those of you who do not know, after Hurricane Ian. I went there in March of 2023. And I had to gut out floors. I had to gut out walls. There was so much black mold all over in some of the homes I kind of worked on that I had to use a respirator the entire time. It's not fun to go through. And 5 to 10 feet of storm surge is more than enough to cause water damage for those of you living over there. This is why I'm taking it very seriously. I've seen hurricane damage up close, and I don't want anyone to be caught into this while this is going on. Also, need to mention this, but geography speaks for itself in terms of Louisiana. Louisiana is very low-lying across much of the southern half of the state. New Orleans is underwater. Just for those of you who do not know, it is pretty much, at least in terms of elevation, below sea level. Any little bit of storm surge that gets over the levees in Lake Pontchartrain, it's gonna flow into New Orleans like it's a bull, pretty much. So I just wanted to make that very clear. I'm not saying it's going to happen this time. It most certainly is not if it's going to be a Category 1. But I want to make that very clear, because New Orleans, we all saw what happened with Hurricane Katrina when the levees burst. A bunch of water flowed into New Orleans, and about 80% of the city was flooded. It's not going to happen this time, but I just wanted to make that clear and why I'm bringing this point up, because storm surge is going to be the biggest threat with this by far. Yes, flooding is going to be a bit also a threat, but it's going to be more of a threat inland in Mississippi and Arkansas and Tennessee and those areas right there. But storm surge is the biggest threat with this. It's always the biggest threat in terms of hurricanes, and 5 to 10 feet of it is quite a lot to take into account. So that's what we're looking at right now. Wind shear, it's still over very good favorable areas of wind shear. It's in that pocket of low wind shear where where the outflow is getting caught into it, but ultimately the core of it is not. And that's kind of the most we can really say about that right now. Let's go ahead and show you some hurricane models to kind of wrap this up in a nice little bow, just so that way you know what's going on and how we're going to pan this out. So here's what we have with the H-Wharf right here. The H-Wharf has the system organizing, developing, makes landfall as a 963 millibar system. I want to go ahead and take a very quick look at what we're looking at, a very quick look at the mean sea level pressure in 10 millibar winds. The H-Wharf still wants this to get up to Category 3 strength, around 120 miles per hour, before it makes landfall at that current intensity. And the H-Wharf wants the system to make landfall around 4 p.m. in Vermilion Bay tomorrow. So if you're in that area, you're very prone to storm surge. If you haven't evacuated yet, please evacuate. Your local officials have ordered you to evacuate. Follow their guidance. So that's the H-Wharf run right there. Let's go ahead and show you the H-Mon with Francine. H-Mon's been pretty interesting. Organizing, developing, goes over that eddy, and then it makes landfall as either a high-end Category 1 or low-end Category 2. This is a 105 mile per hour Category 2 scenario at that current point as it makes landfall east of Vermilion Bay, closer to Port Fourchon, and it looks like the eye might end up going over New Orleans or just west of there, which if that scenario were to happen, that would not be some very good news, because New Orleans would be getting the eyewall of this system, and they absolutely do not need a hurricane. They went through Ida in 2021. All of their power went out, and that was absolutely miserable for everybody involved. So that's the H-Mon we're paying attention to. Let's go ahead and show you the Halves A run. Halves A, similar situation, goes in the eddy, really organizes. The Halves A does want this to get up to major hurricane strength before landfall. However, the Halves A does want this to weaken a little bit down to Category 2 intensity, make landfall as a 971 millibar system near Vermilion Bay, and then move west of New Orleans and move into Mississippi right there. That's the Halves A. Let's go ahead and show you the Halves B run as well. Let's go ahead and do that. Halves B, similar situation. Once it's entered that eddy, things are going to go haywire. It's going to make landfall, according to the Halves B, is a Category 1 hurricane with winds of about 90 miles per hour before moving over New Orleans and then into Mississippi, and then kind of panning out from there, causing a lot of flooding along the way. And lastly, let's go ahead and show you the GFS run. GFS run's been pretty interesting. The GFS isn't really that particularly good with wind speed, but it does want the system to max out at 980 millibars, which would be indicative of a Category 1 hurricane. It's at 987 right now, and where it initialized this, honestly, yeah, it's about I'd say 5 millibars above where initialized, so it's not really the best initialization point at that, but still, it's the GFS, and we have all these other hurricane models as well that we were watching as well. But regardless, the key takeaways: prepare for the worst, pray for the best. This is going to be a situation that could absolutely surprise us. You're already seeing that convection. You're seeing that core getting pretty nice and tightly packed with all of that convection, and ultimately, you're going to want to pay attention to this. What I will say this right now is tonight's is the decision. Is it going to be a big hurricane, or is it going to be one of those systems that kind of becomes a Category 1 and then makes landfall? Regardless, either scenario is pretty bad, because there's going to be some shear with this, and with the dry air to the north of it, that could cause supercell development. And we've been talking about it a lot last night, and there's a big threat for tropical tornadoes with this. So another tornado outbreak could be in the cards with this, and we absolutely do not want to say that, but considering all the factors involved, it's kind of a pick your poison kind of situation that Tristan was talking about last night. So Tristan, shout out to you, buddy. But with that being said, we're going to go ahead and close the video out right here. I really hope you enjoyed it. Be sure to leave a like and subscribe to the channel if you are new. It helps us out, helps us get more people engaged with weather. And if you want to come hang out with us at Storms United, be sure to join our Discord server. Link to that is right in the end screen. Shout out to Daniel as an official sponsor of the Pat's Path Predictor channel. If you want to support me personally, be sure to join my Patreon. Link is the first link in the description down below. And with that being said, have a wonderful day, guys. Stay safe.